In this video, we're going to look at number formats and why they're important. Up until now, we've just been working with generic number formats or generic data. We haven't been specifying any specific type of format for the numbers in our cells. Now, what do I mean by format? Well, I mean, we've been looking at general formatting up until now. We've been looking at kind of stylistic formatting, changing the aesthetic or the look of data in a cell. So for instance, if I type in the number 50 into cell A1, we saw that we were able to bold it and italicize it and underline it. We could change its color. We could change the fill color of the cell. We could select a different font, and we could change the size as well of the actual font used. And we could also apply things like borders as well. It's hard to see that border there with the dark background, so I'm going to change the background to something lighter, and you can see a thick border outside it. That's visual formatting. We're not changing the actual value in the cell, we're simply changing the look, the style of the cell and anything that might appear in the cell. But we're now going to look at actually changing the format of the number. And the format of the number means what type of number is it, okay? So it's a good idea to use appropriate number formats for your numbers, for your data in a spreadsheet. Number formats, essentially, they tell the spreadsheet exactly what type of data you're using. Is your number a percentage? Is it a currency value? Is it a time? Is it a date? And so on and so forth. Is it somebody's height? Is it somebody's wages? They make your spreadsheet easier to read, and they also make it easier to use, because when you're applying a number format, you're telling your spreadsheet exactly what type of values are stored in a cell. So for example, the date format tells the spreadsheet that you're entering specific calendar dates, like today's date, the 6th of the 4th, 2020. And it allows the spreadsheet to better understand your data. Now, this is important because if your data is consistent, it means when we go to start using things like formulas, it helps to ensure that we're doing things properly and that there won't be any errors. If you don't need to use a specific number format, or if you don't apply one yourself, you can see that general is the default format that's used for all of the cells in a new blank workbook and in a new worksheet. And if I was to create a new worksheet, again, everything is general. I'm just going to delete this sheet now. Unless you specify otherwise, it's going to be general. So it's very easy to apply a number format. If I type in 100 into cell A1, you can see that I have 100 in cell A1 and that it's just a general number format. It doesn't mean anything, it's just 100. 100 what? Well, it could be anything. It could be text, it could be numbers as well. These are just characters to the computer. But if I specify that I want it to be a number format, two things happen. I'm given a decimal point after the number 100, and I'm given 2 decimal places. All right, 2 decimal places. So this is now specifically the number 100. And interestingly, if you look up in the formula bar, you're going to see that it displays the actual value, okay? This .00 here is just for display purposes because I haven't typed in 100 dot something something. I've just typed in 100. So the .00 here is just for display purposes, for visual editing. But if I look up in the formula bar, it just gives me the actual value that I typed in, 100. So 100.00 and 100 up here are exactly the same thing. If, however, I type in 100.52, now you can see up in the formula bar that it does display the actual value because I typed in something after the decimal place, and it has to display it up here as well. But with the number format, if you type in just a whole number and your cell is formatted as a number, you will get the decimal place and you'll get 2 decimal spaces afterwards, but you'll just see the actual value up in the formula bar, just in case you're wondering why they look different. So that's how we change a cell from one format to another format. And of course, if I have multiple numbers typed in down along, and you can see that these are all general number formats, I can change all of them at the same time by left-clicking on cell A2, going all the way down to cell A5, and then I can left-click on my down arrow and I can select number. And all of them will be changed to the specific number format. In fact, you can change an entire column or row at the same time. So if I very quickly go back to general, in fact I did it there, but I did it very fast, so I'm going to show you again how to do it. Left-clicking on a column header, A, B, C, D, and so on, selects the entire column, okay, selects the entire column all the way down. So I can now make this entire column a number format column by left-clicking on the down arrow and selecting number. And that means if I go all the way down to a cell that I haven't been anywhere near yet, I'm going down to A134 here, if I type in the number 598, it's automatically specified or displayed as a number format. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. So I'm just going to delete that. No need to delete it really, but I'll delete it anyway. And let's go back up and see some of the other number formats that we have. I'm going to left click on cell A2, which is now number format, because remember I selected the entire A column. And this time I'm going to click on currency. And you'll see that when you click on currency, it's going to display the currency symbol for wherever your computer has been set up. Depending on locality settings and depending on how Windows or whatever operating system you have and Microsoft Office is set up, you may see a different currency symbol. You might see the British pound, or you might see the US dollar. I'm seeing the euro symbol, and you'll probably see that too as well. Now it's very similar in terms of the decimal place and in terms of the two spaces after the decimal point as well. But again, up here it's going to show you the actual value. It's not going to show you any currency symbols up here, and in this case it's not going to show me anything after the decimal place, because there isn't anything after the decimal place, as you can see. It's just 52. But again, no currency symbol up here. That's just for us, that's just for humans. When we're looking at these figures in the worksheet, it's easier to read them. I now know, looking at this, that this represents 52 euro, okay, as opposed to this, which could just be 100 anything, okay. This is now 52 euro. Let's look at another number format here, which you may have seen when I clicked on the down arrow, and that is the date. And we have two actually options that we can choose from: short date and long date. So let's see the difference between these two. When you're working with dates, you'll usually want to use a date format to tell the spreadsheet that you're referring to specific calendar dates, like, you know, May 1st, 2012 or whatever. Date formats also allow you to work with other more powerful functions that use time and date information to calculate an answer. So for instance, you might want to know how many days between one date and another, or you might be calculating somebody's timesheet and you want to know if somebody started at a specific time and ended at a specific time, how many hours and minutes in general did they work for. Now the thing about dates is that spreadsheets don't understand information the way that a person would. Computers, in fact, don't understand information the same way that you and I do. For instance, if I type in the word May in cell A1, the spreadsheet isn't going to know that I'm entering a date into it. It just treats it like any other text. So if you look up here, it still says general. It doesn't know that I'm referring to May the month. So when I want to refer to dates, I have to use a specific format that spreadsheets understand. And in this part of the world, we use day, month, year. So for example, if I type in the following, today's date is the 6th, and then a /, which you'll find in two places. If you have a numeric keypad on your keyboard, you'll find it on the right hand side of your keyboard. If you don't, if you're using a laptop and you don't have a numeric keyboard, you'll find it at the bottom of your keyboard, 3 keys over from the M key, M for Mike. You'll notice that the question mark is on the same key, but you don't need to hold down shift, you just need to press the / key on its own. So today is the 6th of the 4th, another /, and I can either type in 20 or I could type in 2020. I'm just going to type in 20 and see what happens, and you can see, yeah, Excel knows that this is a year that we're referring to, so it puts in all 4 digits for the year. Have a look now at cell A1. Excel has automatically applied the date format. It knows that we're talking about a specific date, so it's applied that format specifically to cell A1. We could, of course, select the entire column and go to, I'm going to explain the difference between short date and long date in a second. I could have done that too, but it's not going to make a difference because Excel is smart enough to know when I start to type in formats like this, 05, let's say 03, 1997. It's going to know that this is a date, so I didn't need to pre-format it, but you can if you want. Now there are two specific kinds of dates in terms of date format. I'm going to go back to cell A1 and left click on the down arrow, and you'll see that I have short date and long date. Short date is used by default, but if I click on long date, you'll see that it gives me the actual day. So today is Monday, April 6th, 2020. I have no idea what day the 5th of March in 1997 was, not without looking up a calendar, but I can also do this. I can left click go to long date. There you go. It was a Wednesday, and you could do that date for pretty much any date in history. Well, there is a cutoff point, but Excel is able to take today's date and it's able to count backwards basically very, very fast, which is what computers are good at doing, and calculate exactly what day that specific date was. So those are the date formats in Microsoft Excel. We can do some advanced stuff like, as I mentioned earlier on, calculating the difference between two dates in terms of how many days was it between this day and this day. Or if we're talking about time, we'll be seeing time shortly as well. We can figure out how many hours or minutes elapsed between one point in time and another point in time. For example, if you were calculating, let's say, how many hours and minutes somebody had worked. So it's very, very useful. Now, there are a number of other ways we can type in dates as well, and Excel is usually smart enough to be able to figure it out, that what we're referring to. But there are ways of catching it out as well. So, for instance, if I type in April 6th, Excel is not going to know that I'm typing in a date. Okay, the TH actually is throwing it. It doesn't understand that I'm referring to a date, so it's still using the general number format. However, if I get rid of the TH and type in April 6th, it is going to type it in, or going to display it. It's actually going to display it as what's known as a custom format, but it's still a date. You can see it says up here 01/04/2006. So this is another valid way of typing in dates as well. I can type in May 1. Again, not May 1st, 1ST. As you can see, if I type in May 1st like this, Excel is not going to recognize it as a date, but it is going to recognize September. It's very important that you spell the months right as well. 22. Again, it's going to recognize that as a date. It's just going to display them using what's known as a custom format. So the display format it's not too important in terms of when we're actually doing calculations on the dates. It's just for display. But the thing to realize is that Excel is seeing these as valid dates, okay? So let's try a number of other ones as well. If I type in 10/12, it's going to look at that as December 20th, okay? Why? Well, let's do it again. 10/12. That is going to be the 10th of the 12th. But it's going to just say December 20. Okay, it's not going to say December 10th, 20. So it's a slightly different format. It's a custom format. If I type in just the word May, that's just text. It's just custom text. Excel doesn't recognize it as a date. If I type in May 12, that is going to be recognized as a valid date. What about if I type in May 2015? Again, yes, it's going to look at it as a valid date, and so on. All right. So it's a useful way of kind of messing around with how you can actually display your dates. A lot of the time you're just going to, of course, use the following format: 02nd to 05, let's say 1977 or whatever. All right, but there may be instances where you want to actually have a different format, because this is admittedly a lot more legible and easier to read than this. So that's the date format in Excel. Now, another very useful number format is the percentage format, and what that does is it displays values as percentages, like 20 and then the percentage symbol, or 55%. This is very helpful when you're calculating things like maybe the cost of sales tax, or maybe a tip on something. So when you type the percentage sign after a number, the percentage number format will be applied to that cell automatically. Let's give it a go. If I left click in cell C1, and if I type the number 5, and then the percentage symbol, you'll find it on the number 5 on your keyboard. To access it, you'll have to hold down the Shift key and then press the number 5. Whenever you hold down Shift and press a number, you get the symbol that's at the top of that key, if there is a symbol on top of that key. So because the percentage symbol is on top of the number 5, when I hold down Shift and tap the 5 key, I get the percentage symbol. If I just press 5 on its own, I get 5. So I've typed in 5% and I've pressed enter, and when I go back you can see that Excel has now automatically formatted this cell as a percentage cell. It knows that I want this cell to be a percentage cell because I've typed in 5 and then the percentage logo. Now, if you might remember from your maths classes, a percentage can also be written as a decimal, okay? So for example, 15%, like this, is the same thing as, I'm going to go over to the D column, which is just general. These two are the same thing. They represent the same amount, okay? So a percentage can also be written as a decimal without the percentage symbol, all right? But we can convert. There are lots of times when we might want to convert. So for instance, if I had something written in as 0.25, what's that as a percentage? Well, it's 25%. If I wanted to then convert this cell, which is a general cell, and I'm looking at 0.25 and I think, no, that would look better written as an actual percentage. What I can do is I can go up to my down arrow and select percentage. And what it will do is it will change the value to percentage. It will calculate, essentially what it does is it multiplies the value in the cell by 100, and it sticks the percentage symbol afterwards. And it also gives me 2 decimal places as well, okay? It gives me 2 decimal places. So there are lots of times when percentage formatting might be useful, like if you were doing things with tax or doing things with basically percentages of something as a whole, you might want to format as a percentage. One thing you do need to be careful of, however, is the following. I'm going to clear both of these, clear all, and I'm going to type in 15. Now if I decided that, hang on, that should be 15%. If I left click on the down arrow and select percentage, it's going to give me 1500%. Clearly that's not what I want. I wanted 15%. Don't forget, whenever you apply percentage like this, what Excel is going to do is it's going to take the value in your cell and it's going to multiply it by 100 in order to convert it, to turn it into a percentage. So you need to be careful about that. What you should have had in the cell instead, in order for that to work, was the following, 0.15. That is something I can now convert to a percentage, to the 15%. So Excel is literally going to do that. It's going to take the content of your cell, it's going to multiply it by 100, and it's going to stick the percentage symbol afterwards. So you do need to be careful about that. You can also pre-select an entire column as percentage like that, and then that's probably the best way of doing it. So I've pre-selected my entire column by left clicking on the D column header, selecting percentage, as you can see, and then I'm safe to type in. If somebody says to me that something is 17%, I can simply type in 17 and it appears as 17%. Or if something is only 1%, I can type in 1 and it's only 1%. But you do need to be careful when you're converting existing figures to percentages. So just be aware of that. So that's the percentage format. The last number format we're going to look at is the time format. Whenever you type a time in a cell, or a date for that matter, it's going to appear in the worksheet in a default time format. And that default format is going to be based on the date and time settings that your computer is set up for in your control panel. That's why I mentioned in the last section, or a couple of sections ago, that when you're working with currency values, sometimes you might see different currency symbols depending on your regional settings that are set up in control panel. You should probably be seeing the euro symbol, as I am, but sometimes you might be seeing different symbols. I think I recall some of the computers in Carrick in the centre had different currency symbols. It's the same with time as well. So when you type in a time into any cell in a worksheet, it's going to adopt a default format, and that default format is going to be based on the time settings that are specified in your computer's control panel. I'll show you exactly what I mean. If I left click on cell A1, there are a number of ways I can type a time. I'm going to type in 9:30 a.m., so that's 9:30 in the morning. If I type in the following, 9:00. Now you get the colon by holding down the shift key on your keyboard and pressing the key beside the L key. Notice that there's a colon and a semicolon on that key. Again, you need to hold down shift to get the top symbol on any key which has two symbols, the top and a bottom symbol. So I'm holding down shift and I'm pressing the key beside the L key to get the colon, the full colon. And I'm typing in 30. If I press enter, Excel has automatically figured out that I wanted to type in a time. It's used the fact that I typed in a semicolon as a guess that, yeah, this person is probably typing in a time, and they're probably typing in 9:30 in the morning. So it has formatted this time that I've typed into cell A1 as a time cell. Now, what does that mean in terms of actually doing stuff with time, and in terms of actually doing calculations with time? Not a whole lot for us, because we're not going to be looking at formatting for that purpose. We're not going to be looking at extracting hours, minutes, and seconds, or figuring out the difference between one time and another. But just be aware that when you do, if you move forward with Excel onto level 4 or ECDL, there may come a time, pardon the pun, when you have to be able to do that. And in order to be able to do that, you need to make sure that your cells are formatted as time cells in order for those calculations to be possible, in order for Excel to be able to do those calculations. If I was to type in the following, 9 a.m., now look at the number format for that. It's creating what's known as a custom format for this, because it's seeing a mixture of letters and numbers, okay? Whereas this, it's recognizing it as a valid time. I could also do the following. If I type in 9 and then colon 30, if I wanted it to be AM or PM, if I wanted it to be PM, I put a space after the 0 and I've typed in the letter P. And if I press enter, Excel automatically detects that I wanted to type in 9:30 in the evening, which in 24-hour format is 21:30. If you're not comfortable with 24-hour format, there is actually a facility in Excel for converting from one to the other. Again, we're not going to look at that. But don't forget, you start at 12, 13 for 1, 14 for 2, and so on and so forth. So we're at 9:30, which is 21:30. Have a look at the format for both of these. We have hours, that's this bit here that I've selected. We have minutes, that's this bit here, and we can even specify seconds as well. So you can actually be quite granular and quite, fine-tuned with the time that you're specifying. In cell A3, I'm going to type in the following: 09, colon, and this time, instead of P, I'm going to type in 30 as well, and this time instead of P, I'm going to type in A. And this is going to give me exactly what it gave me here in cell A1. It's going to detect that I wanted to type in 9:30 a.m. And again, both of these now are going to be the same. So you can see that these three are now fully formatted as time cells. Now you could customize the way time appears in the format cells dialog box. It's not something we'll jump into in great detail, but what we can do is click on the launcher button here. We haven't looked at this little button here, but just to give you an idea of the many different ways in which we can overwrite the default settings that Excel handles time by. And if I click on this little launcher button here, it's going to produce a dialog box, a format cells dialog box. And all of the different categories, or all the different number formats are down here. General, number, we've looked at those already, date, and here's time as well. Now you may see more or less here. This is my computer, it's set up for English Ireland, and it's going to basically display time in 24-hour format. So we have hours, minutes, and seconds, and that's the way. But you may see others here. You can also left click on the custom setting over here down on the very bottom, and you can see that there are many other ways of applying a time format, applying a custom time format. So for instance, I'm going to go with the following. I'm going to left click OK, and you can see that now instead of just 9:30 in 24-hour format, it's displaying it as 9:30 hours, minutes, and seconds, and it's giving me the AM. So I'll just show you that again. I'm going to left click on cell A1. I'm going to left click on the number format launcher. I'm going to left click on custom, and I'm going to look for a specific number format here. I have to scroll up through this list. You can see me scrolling here, and I can left click on either one of these two here. Hours, minutes, and seconds will give me essentially what I have here. But if I only wanted hours and minutes, let's try this one. It's going to knock off these last two zeros here and only give me hours and minutes, because I may not want seconds. I may not want to be that precise with my time. So if I click OK, I get 9:30 a.m. Again, as with the other number formats, you can left click and drag multiple cells in advance, or you can select an entire column, and then you can specify that you want it to be time, or if you want to, you can click on number, go to custom, and then select your custom time format. Custom simply means that it's not the default. This is the default. If I type in 0930, that's the default. That's what it's going to show up as, okay? 930. But we can see that we can override that. We can override it with any of the custom ones. You can even create your own custom ones as well if you want to, but we're not going to be doing that. So that's pretty much all you need to know for now about displaying numbers as times. Very useful when you go to actually start calculating differences between times, but you're not required to know that for any of the worksheets that we're going to be doing, for any of the briefs that we're going to be doing. So if you have any questions about any of that, that's the last number format. And in fact, that's the last part of this video for creating number formats and formatting cells as numbers. In the next video, we're going to move on to working with formulas. So we're actually going to start seeing some of the heavy lifting that Excel can do with regard to actually crunching numbers, which is the whole point of a spreadsheet. So if you have any questions about this video, please drop me a line, and you'll find a revision exercise in the description of this video. Just click on the show more button, the show more link in the description for this video, and you'll see a link to an exercise sheet that you can download as a PDF. I'd recommend downloading it and doing it because, as always, you learn by doing. So I'll see you in the next video where we start working with formulas.